You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. An undergraduate of Olabisi Onabanjo University in Ogun State, Ayomide Adeleye, was this past week arrested over the kidnap and alleged murder of Christiana Idowu, a student of Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, in the same state. His arrest appears to have opened a can of worms, with several reports emerging of how he also allegedly raped and killed a number of other female victims, including a former girlfriend and his own sister. While the conversation around violence against women never went away, the horrible disclosures of the past week seems to have upped the stakes and recast the role of law enforcement and punishment in bold relief. We're now being joined to focus on all of that by Uloma Nwoke, an advocate for women's social, political, and economic rights. Good morning, Uloma. Good to have you join us on the morning show today.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you indeed. Let's talk about things that you are familiar with, things that are of concern almost on a daily basis, the issue of women's rights, violence against women, particularly in the context of what happened in Ogun State. The young man that has been arrested and is now cooling his feet with the police. I believe that he was originally arrested by the army with the allegation that he raped and killed a young lady. There are cases like these, all over the country at one point or the other. What are we not getting right? Is advocacy high enough? And where do you think that the authorities should tighten the noose to ensure that the enemies around or the enemies within are adequately exposed and dealt with?
Okay, I think the first thing is to recognize that femicide is a cultural and social problem. Femicide is the most extreme form of violence against women. And before we get to that point, there are so many steps that must have been taken. It means that violence is culturally allowed. It means that women are seen as less, as inferior, and as people deserving of being corrected through violent means. We can see through this case that the most, it supports what data says about femicide indeed, because what it means is that the most likely person to commit murder against a woman is her intimate partner. So we have a man or a boy who has killed his sister, killed his ex-girlfriend, and killed his friend. It's really just showing us that there's a deep cultural problem there, because we've had two cover-ups before the third one. And if there wasn't any alarm raised over this issue, it probably could have gone undercover. When I speak of femicide being a cultural issue, what we're talking about is a culture that sees women as inferior will always want to put women in their place. Every 11 minutes globally, a woman is killed by an intimate partner. That is 137 women every single day. And femicide is unique in the sense that it is the one kind of murder that involves or that is committed because of the gender of the person. So it means women are being killed maybe because they did not cook, or because they are pregnant and vulnerable, or because it sometimes involves sexual violence, as was in this case. And it's just a unique form of murder because women are not being killed by strangers at the same rates as they are being killed by their partners, by their ex-boyfriends or ex-husbands, by their fathers, by their brothers. It is a deep cultural issue that we need to address. And we need to address it by accepting and acknowledging that we need to raise the bar for what we see women as socially and culturally. We need to enforce laws, and we need to enforce regulations that support this the entire concept that women are not deserving of the position that we've put them in society.
Yeah, thank you for joining us this morning. Now, we know in 2000 2021, we had Inueben Umoren, a young woman in Akwa Ibom State that was killed. In 2020, we had Uwaila Omozua, a 22-year-old woman who was raped and killed in a church in Benin City. And now we have 21-year-old Christiana. These are young women in their prime who are being killed across the country by men who are known to them. Have we seen any, apart from these stories trending and us discussing the violence against women? I like that you've brought up laws, because right now we have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act at risk of being repealed in the Nigerian Senate. So even the laws that we do have on books are subject to even being changed at the moment. I want to ask if you've seen any significant positions being taken by members of the government to protect women, both legally and to make these cultural changes that you think are required to reduce the rate of femicide in Nigeria.
I don't think that I can say that there has been significant improvement in this situation for women. The VAPP being on the verge of being repealed is a testament to the fact that we're not taking this as seriously as we should. And one thing that is very important to note here is that these are the murders that we know of. The murders are probably underreported because, for example, in the case of the most recent case that we are all talking about, these two women who were murdered before he murdered the third one, nobody knew about it. So there's so much more that we don't know. I know of a media organization, Document Women, which has been trying to gather reports from the internet of femicide cases in Nigeria. And I think I said yesterday, there were about 80 cases in the country that were reported. What is the law enforcement doing about this? The thing, again, when I say that it is a social and like a cultural problem, it is about the fact that when a woman dies, we need someone to report them, and we need someone to report the murder. And when that is done, if people don't have a law enforcement that they can trust, it means that there isn't really anything that can change towards that. It also means that these things are not ever going to get reported in the way that they should be. It's another thing that it requires is that we need government agencies that take this as seriously as it should be taken. In Lagos, we have DSVA, which I think they've made a lot of progress with regard taking care of like these matters and not taking it lightly. But we need more of that across the country. We need the government to bring more serious interventions into this issue because, like I said, it's just a way to remind women that this is their place in society. It is a way to humble women. It is something that families are going to keep covering up. We need laws that make it such that covering up such a crime is a crime in itself and it is fully enforced. Currently, we don't have that. And it testifies to the fact that we do not see women's lives as important. We don't see our lives as valuable. And we're just cautionary tales waiting to happen, really.
All right, Oloma, I would like you to talk more to us about the difference, if any, between femicide and gender-based violence, especially within the context of Nigeria, and how do you think that the law enforcement and the authorities on the one hand, and then advocates, and the civil society on the other hand, are dealing with both terms and both realities. I know that what many people would want would be that justice should be served, and it shouldn't be for Christiana alone. Adesua mentioned the case of Inueben Umoren. I'm sure you're also aware of the case of Ms. Ayonwole Bamishe, who was raped and also killed in the BRT bus a couple of years ago in Lagos. That case is still out there, and nobody has heard how far it has gone. Culprits, suspects are still there, not necessarily roaming about, but justice has not been served. So when we're talking femicide or talking gender-based violence, how much of are we just talking terms and concepts, or we are really, really concerned about the human lives that are involved? Ulama, did you get the question? Can you hear me? All right. It looks like there's a little technical glitch there.
Yes.
We hope to hook up again with Ulama. But I think that she was making an important point, particularly to the question about the
legal protection.
Protection there.
I know. I honestly think it is actually, we're at a crisis point where the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, and it's called the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act because that act is not only just supposed to support women, that act is gender neutral.
Yeah.
It is protecting women, children, and men who are victims of violence. And that act has taken over a decade to get it entrenched in multiple states in Nigeria. 34 out of 36 states have entrenched the Violence Against Persons Act. And when we are having viral videos of people who are going through violence, either domestic violence, we see women being beaten on Twitter, either cases of murder, cases of rape, a young woman being raped and killed in a church. When we have these issues and then you have a sitting senator...
You're right. I think we have a... you're going to say something about the senator?
Yeah. You have these issues, and a sitting senator chooses to repeal an act instead of amend it because he wants to change the fines.
Okay, that's part of maybe what Uloma should talk about. But did you get my question earlier, Uloma?
No, I didn't.
Okay, let me just quickly repeat so that you can add that to the part of a sitting senator trying to repeal, the current act. I was asking about the difference between femicide and gender-based violence, and if you think that these are just terms and concepts that people are bandying about, or are we sincerely concerned about the lives of individuals that are concerned? I mentioned the fact that this is not just about the lady in question in Lagos last week, Idowu Christiana, but also about Umoren that my colleague Adesua mentioned, and of course the case of Ms. Ayonwale Bamishe, who was raped and killed in the BRT bus in Lagos a couple of years ago. Justice is yet to be served, but then we're discussing terms and concepts.
Okay, one key difference between GBV and femicide is that femicide is, will I say, the most extreme form of GBV, which is gender-based violence. 1 in 3 women globally will be victims of gender-based violence in their lifetime. What this means is sexually and physically, they will be violated by mostly men known to them. So we hear reports of women being killed by their husbands and women being beaten by their husbands because they didn't cook well, or because they had another girl and maybe the family wants a son, or because they didn't do their role, or they didn't play their role in society as it should be, or honor killings in some parts of the world, including ours as well, even though it's also underreported. These are forms of gender-based violence. It is a kind of violence that, like I said previously, its intention is to remind women of their place in society, and it is socially and culturally accepted that women are corrected through corporal punishment. People seem to be very fine with women receiving 1 or 2 slaps by from their husbands or their brothers or fathers and stuff like that. So that is GBV. There's also the major issue of sexual violence that most women are exposed to from childhood up to adulthood. Women are at risk of being sexually abused, mostly by men close to them. Could be uncles, brothers, fathers, friends, but these are the likely culprits of GBV and sexual-based violence, or like say sexual violence against women. Now, femicide is a specific kind of murder or killing of women for their gender. Femicide is categorized into different types. There is the femicide that is sex-related or sexual, related to sex crimes, where a woman is raped or sexually violated and the perpetrator kills her. There's femicide, like I mentioned, honor killings, which I think there are about 5,000 cases reported around the world each year. So these are women being killed, maybe because they didn't wear the right hair covering or because they took an education and the family was not in support of it, usually committed by brothers or fathers and sometimes husbands as well. We also have other types of femicides related to stuff like gender roles, like cooking, like I mentioned, women who get killed. We see reports of that we see reports of that every now and then. There's also intimate partner femicide. It is one of the most common forms of femicide, which is usually perpetrated sometimes when a woman leaves an abusive partner or leaves a partner. This is the kind of femicide that is committed by their boyfriends, by husbands, by ex-boyfriends and ex-husbands. In most recent reports was the sad report of the Ugandan athlete or Olympian who was just murdered by her ex-boyfriend in front of her daughters. So these are specific kinds, this is a specific kind of killing and targeted specifically because women are seen as inferior. And it is like a constant reminder that we do not, we are not valued by society, or women are not valued by society, and is enforced by so many different cultural norms, which is what we should really, really be talking about. We need to break down these norms.
All right. The other part to the question, which this was raised earlier, and which we thought, because by the time we came back to you, we were talking about, excuse me, a sitting senator who's proposing, that has already entered the second reading, I believe, about repealing the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015, which, as a matter of fact, will be the law under which femicide, etc., can be dealt with. Now, the Senate is not proposing to amend it. They're proposing to have it repealed. What will be your thoughts on this? Have you been following on what is going on around that in the Senate?
Yes, I'm very aware of the VAPP Act and the intentions to repeal it. First things first, Nigeria is one of the most unsafe places for a woman to exist in the world. Repealing such an act where we don't have an alternative or a law that really protects women is just adding fuel to the fire. And in an economic climate like ours, violence is known to rise. We saw things like this during COVID when there was a spike in sexual and gender-based violence against women, of course. And we need stronger laws. We cannot afford to have no law protecting women at all. We need stronger laws and not less of what we have. I think that there also needs to, I think every single woman needs to understand that this is the one law that we are holding on to protect us. It is the one law that we can say, yes, when violence is committed against me, I can take this to court or I can get the perpetrator punished, even though less of that happens now. Taking away something like that in a country as volatile as ours for women is going to be quite catastrophic, and not in really mild terms, in extreme terms, because it is going to be a license for violence to be committed against women of any kind, and to know that there isn't going to be any special punishments given for these crimes.
Thank you very much. Now, You know, you've defined femicide, and femicide is exactly what it says it is. It's the killing of a woman because she is a woman. It is not just killing. It's not just the killing of any woman. That's why it's different from homicide. It's the killing of a woman because she's a woman. If you kill a girl because you don't believe women should go to school, that is femicide. If you kill a woman because you do not believe that they're dressed appropriately for a woman, that is femicide. Now, but beyond this, we have statistics that according to a UN survey in 2018, it says 25% of Nigerian women said that they have experienced intimate partner violence. According to the World Bank, 46% of married women are currently in abusive relationships in Nigeria. These are significant numbers. That means if there's a table of 4 women sitting down, statistically, at least one of them would have experienced intimate partner violence. Now, when we talk about safe spaces for women in workplaces, when we talk about safe spaces for Nigerian women in society, in their churches, do you think that the government, or do you think that civil society is doing enough to reorient and re-educate the younger generation of Nigerians who are growing up in a society where such violence, intimate partner violence, domestic violence, and femicide and abuse is so normalized or so prevalent? Do you think that we are doing enough to teach younger Nigerians to make sure that both the young boys and the young girls are better equipped to live in a less abusive environment?
In a climate like ours for women, I don't think the word enough is ever going to be realized for us. We need more, and we're going to keep needing more and more and more action. We are not doing enough based on the statistics that we currently have. We need to do a lot more to put things in place, really. On a cultural level, there's a lot to be done. We have a culture that still sees women as inferior, still sees women as people who shouldn't aspire for more. We have a culture that seeks to restrict and limit women from actualizing their dreams and goals and from just being human. And we have a culture, for example, where it is normal to tell women that, yes, you deserve to have been killed or raped if you follow a guy home. Even though data shows that women are more likely to be killed by men known to them than by strangers who pick them up on the road. So until we get to a point where we are able to have like a second order and a third order type of thinking, where we see things like murder happen to women and we know and recognize that if a man is able to kill a woman, it means he is going to do it again if there isn't any restraint or if there isn't any limitations on like how far he can go. It means that we need to reorient ourselves in a way that acknowledges that no woman is deserving of violence or of sexual violence or rape because of the way they dress or because of the way they speak or the place that they choose to be. It means recognizing that if a man kills a woman or rapes a woman because of the way she's dressing, it means that at home, he's probably also doing that to a child. It means he's probably doing it to his colleagues as well, or his wife, or his neighbor. That is, we need to get to a point where we are able to think in second orders and third order, but we don't have that currently. There's a very serious issue on our hands, and a reorientation needs to be done. And as we can see so far, the best measure, or the best way to measure progress in this regard would be data. And data is showing us that it's getting worse and not better. We clearly are not doing enough.
All right, Uloma Nwoke, we want to thank you so very much for lending your voice to the cause of the women and joining us on the morning show today. Thank you so much.